I risked everything for you, not because I had to, but because I had to, but because something in my heart whispered that you were worth every step into the unknown. You know, life has this way of asking us who we really are, especially when love becomes the question we're trying to answer. And sometimes the only way to find that answer is to leap, even when the ground beneath us disappears. Tonight, I want to tell you why I chose the leap, why I walked through fear, doubt, and every quiet moment of uncertainty. Not for glory, not for applause, but for something far more human, something far more powerful. For love, the kind that makes you brave enough to give everything, even when you're not sure what you'll get back. I risked turns into music. I risked everything for you. And when I say everything, I mean the parts of myself I never thought I would place in someone else's hands. The vulnerable pieces, the quiet corners of my soul, the dreams I kept folded and hidden away because I believed the world would crush them if I showed them too openly. Loving you made me take those folded pieces and smooth them out in the light. Loving you made me stand at the edge of everything familiar and whisper to myself that it was time to step beyond it. I didn't take that step lightly. I didn't leap without feeling the tremble in my chest. I moved forward because something in you called to something in me, something that felt older than fear and stronger than doubt. You have to understand risk isn't just a dramatic action. It's not flashing lights or loud storms or grand gestures. It's not flashing lights or loud storms or grand gestures, Zik. And the noise turns into music. Sometimes risk is quiet. Sometimes it's a long, trembling breath in the middle of a night when you're staring at the ceiling, wondering if your heart is about to break or finally find a place to rest. Sometimes risk is choosing to believe in someone, even when your past has given you every reason not to. And that's what this was for me. Believing, trusting, opening, none of which came easy, and yet somehow, all of which felt right. There were days when I questioned myself endlessly. I would wake up with this heavy knot in my stomach, wondering if I was doing the right thing, wondering if I was doing the right thing, wondering if giving so much of myself would leave me empty in the end. But then I'd think of you. I'd think of the way your presence softened something inside me, the way your voice steadied me when the world felt loud, the way you saw me, not the version I showed everyone else, but the real me, the one behind the calm surface. And every time that thought crossed my mind, I knew the risk wasn't just a gamble. It was a choice made from something deep and honest. Sometimes I'd sit alone and imagine the different ways this could go. I'd imagine the best possibilities, the warmth, the closeness, the sense of belonging, and I'd imagine the worst, the heartbreak, the distance, the silent unraveling of things I cared about. But the strange thing was, even when my mind wandered into the possibility of losing everything, even when I pictured the pain that could come, something in me still thought, yes, this is worth it. Because loving you didn't feel like something I could walk away from, is it? It felt like something woven into the foundation of who I was becoming. There's a certain kind of courage that rises in you when you love someone deeply, not the loud courage of battles or bold speeches, but the quiet courage of letting someone see your scars, the courage of letting someone know where you've been hurt before, of allowing them to trace the outlines of the fragile places inside you. I didn't offer that easily. I didn't open those doors without hesitation. But with you, I found myself wanting to. I found myself wanting to be seen, fully and without the layers I had built to protect myself. Maybe that was the biggest risk of all, letting you see me, not the polished parts, not the carefully arranged pieces, but the messy truth of who I am. The fears I never voiced, the hopes I barely admitted to myself. The tenderness turns into music, the tenderness I kept guarded. I handed those things to you slowly, carefully, but willingly. And each time I did, I felt something shift, not a loss, but a release. As if all the years of holding everything close had kept me small, and loving you taught me how to expand again. I risked everything for you because something about you made the world make sense in a different way. You made the ordinary feel extraordinary. You made simple moments feel like they were stitched with meaning. Dao. You made me realize that connection isn't something you plan or predict. It's something that arrives unexpectedly and changes everything before you even understand why. I didn't seek out this feeling. I didn't decide in advance that I would give myself so deeply. It happened because you were you, and something about that made the risk feel like truth. There were moments when I'd look at you and feel this quiet ache, an ache that wasn't pain, but an overwhelming awareness of how much you mattered. The kind of awareness that makes you want to hold time still. The kind that makes your heart beat a little heavier because you suddenly understand how fragile everything is. Loving someone means knowing you could lose them. It means understanding that nothing is promised, But it also means realizing that some connections are worth embracing, even with that uncertainty. I stood on the edge of everything I knew and chose to step into the unknown because being close to you felt like the most honest direction my life could take. I knew the risks. I knew what could shatter. I knew the parts of myself I might not be able to recover if things fell apart. But I also knew that the alternative, turning away, protecting myself, playing it safe, would leave me regretting something far greater. It would leave me wondering what could have been if I had been brave enough to choose you fully. Risk isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a soft voice inside you saying, go even though you're scared. Sometimes it's a heartbeat speaking louder than reason. Sometimes it's the understanding that love is not a guarantee, but an invitation. And when that invitation appeared in my life, shaped in your smile, carried in your presence, I couldn't ignore it. I didn't want to ignore it. You might never fully understand the depth of what I risked. Not because you can't, but because you can't, but because some things live in the quiet spaces inside a person's soul where words can only reach so far. But I can tell you this, every step I took toward you was a step away from my old fears. Every moment I let myself care more deeply was a moment where I rewrote the story I used to tell myself that I wasn't meant for something this real. You helped me rewrite that without even trying. I risked everything for you because I saw something in you that felt rare, a softness the world sometimes tries to bury, a sincerity that's easy to overlook in a world full of noise, and light that felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Being near you didn't just feel comforting, it felt clarifying, like the pieces of my life that didn't make sense before began to align. When you stepped into the picture, some people might say risking everything for love is foolish. They might say it's reckless or idealistic or naive. But those people haven't felt what I felt. They haven't known the kind of connection that shifts something fundamental inside you. They haven't experienced the way someone's presence can become a steadying force, a kind of anchor that brings you back to yourself. When I looked at you, I didn't see danger. I saw possibility. Your life and the noise turns into music. I saw a future. That felt less like a dream and more like something real. Even on the hardest days, even when uncertainty pressed against me, the thought of you kept me steady. The way you laugh, the way you listen, the way you exist with this quiet depth that feels like a safe place in a chaotic world. Those things mattered. They mattered more than fear, more than doubt, more than the risks stacked high. Every fear I had was outweighed by the simple truth that loving you felt right, and maybe you don't realize the impact you had. Maybe you don't see how your kindness softened the walls around me. Maybe you don't know how your presence made my life feel less heavy. But I felt it. I felt it. Every time you looked at me, every time your voice steadied my thoughts, every time your existence reminded me that not everything in this world is fleeting. Some things stay, some things matter, some things are worth risking everything for. I used to think love was something you had to guard yourself against. I used to think letting someone in too deeply would only lead to pain, but loving you changed that belief. It didn't erase the risks, it just made them feel meaningful. It made them feel like part of a larger journey, one that led me not away from myself, but toward a stronger, clearer version of who I could be, someone I wanted to grow with, someone whose happiness felt intertwined with my own in a way I couldn't untangle even if I tried. And that scared me, not because it was wrong, but because it was real. Real things are always a little frightening. They carry weight, they carry consequence, they carry risk, but they also carry beauty, depth, and purpose. And you carried all of that for me. Maybe I'll never have the perfect words to explain how deeply I cared, how intensely I felt the pull towards you, how natural it felt to risk everything, even we. The outcome was uncertain, but I can tell you this, every moment I chose you. I chose truth, I chose vulnerability, I chose hope. I chose love not as a feeling that fades, but as a force that transforms. I risked everything for you because you were the one thing in my life that made risking everything feel like the only real choice. And even now, even in the quiet spaces where doubt sometimes lingers, the part of me that stepped forward for you, the part that dared to love boldly, still knows what my heart knew from the beginning. There is a kind of silence that sits inside a person, a silence that stays even when everything around them is loud. And I've been living in that silence for a long time. It's not loneliness, not exactly, but a kind of hollow space that waits for something real to fill it. When I began caring for you, when your presence began to settle into the corners of my life, that silence changed. It didn't disappear, but it softened like someone had finally walked into a quiet room and turned on a small, warm light. And in that softening, I found myself reflecting more deeply than I ever had, asking myself questions I didn't know I had been avoiding, confronting feelings I had held still for years. because I was afraid of disturbing them. You became the mirror I didn't know I needed, the reflection I didn't expect to see. Not because you were trying to change me or teach me anything, but because you were trying to change me or teach me anything, but because you simply existed with this kind of sincerity that made me want to understand myself better. Every time I looked at you, every time I felt something shift inside me, I found myself peeling back layers I hadn't touched in so long that I had almost forgotten they were part of me. And in that peeling and that rediscovery, I found both fear and beauty, both vulnerability and truth. I found the parts of me that wanted to love without hesitation, and the parts that were terrified of breaking all over again. There were nights when I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, letting my mind wander through the maze of my own thoughts. I'd think about the moments with you that felt simple, yet somehow carried a weight I couldn't ignore, a glance that lingered half a second longer than expected, a quiet conversation that opened something inside me, a shared silence that felt less like emptiness and more like understanding. I'd replay those moments over and over, not to analyze them, but because they made me feel something I hadn't felt in so long, a sense of being seen, of being understood without explanation. And in those moments of reflection, I'd ask myself why you mattered so deeply. Music, why my heart felt different around you, why my mind softened instead of tightening, why every wall I had spent years building felt suddenly thin, fragile, easily melted by something as gentle as your presence. It wasn't logic. It wasn't calculation. It wasn't something I could label or categorize. It was something felt, something instinctual, something real in a way that caught me off guard. I found myself tracing the memories of us, the soft ones, the heavy ones, the uncertain ones, and each time I realized how much I'd grown simply by caring for you, how much more present I had become, how much more honest I had become with myself. Loving you in its quiet unfolding made me confront the parts of me I tried to hide, the fear of not being enough, the fear of wanting too much, the fear of giving my heart only to watch it slip through my fingers. But alongside that fear, there was this other feeling, this warmer, stronger feeling that told me that maybe, just maybe, loving someone was allowed to feel this profound. And the reflection only deepened with time. The more I let myself care, the more I saw the pieces of myself that had been untouched by tenderness for too long, pieces that had been waiting for permission to breathe. You didn't give me that permission explicitly. You didn't need to. Sometimes it's not words that unlock a person, it's presence. It's presence. It's the way someone exists around you, the energy they bring, the way their existence shifts something subtle and essential inside you. I began thinking differently about the past, not with bitterness or regret, but with understanding. I looked at the mistakes I had made, the people I had loved before, the pain I carried quietly in the background of my days. And instead of hiding from those memories, I found myself wanting to understand them, wanting to learn from them. Because caring for you made me want to be better. Not perfect, not flawless, just better, more open, more aware, more willing to embrace the parts of me that I had neglected. There were moments when the depth of my own feelings scared me, moments when I realized how much I wanted you to feel safe with me, how much I wanted to offer you comfort, how much I wanted to protect the softness in you that the world might not always honor. And that desire made me reflect not only on what I felt for you, but on the person I was becoming through that love. I found myself wanting to be gentle in ways I never knew mattered. I found myself wanting to listen more deeply, speak more honestly, act more thoughtfully. And that kind of internal change doesn't happen without deep reflection. It doesn't happen without deep reflection. It doesn't happen without confronting the parts of yourself that have been silent for too long. I would think about the way your presence made everything feel different, the way my mind settled when you were near, the way my heart steadied instead of racing with anxiety, the way being around you felt like stepping into a quiet space inside myself I didn't know how to reach before. And I realized that the connection I felt wasn't just about affection or attraction. It was about recognition. Something in me recognized something in you, something familiar, something warm, something I didn't want to lose. This recognition made me reflect on what it means to truly care for someone, not the surface level kind, not the casual kind, but the casual kind, but the kind that asks you to be aware of your own emotions, your own patterns, your own shadows, the kind that asks you to slow down and feel things you've ignored. Music, Ed, the kind that asks you to risk letting someone matter. And as I reflected on all of this, I felt the truth of it settle deeper and deeper. Caring for you wasn't just something happening to me, it was something shaping me. There is a certain softness that comes with loving deeply, a softness that the world sometimes tries to erase. But with you, that softness felt like strength. It felt like a part of me waking up. And in that awakening, I realized how much I had held back over the years, How many emotions I had tucked away because I thought they made me vulnerable. How many dreams I had dimmed because I thought they were too fragile. But being near you made me want to unearth those parts again, made me want to reconnect with the pieces of myself that believed in tenderness and truth. I started noticing small things, more like the way my breath felt steadier when I thought of you, or the way colors seemed a bit more vivid on days when your energy lingered in my mind. I started paying attention to the quiet moments, the pauses in conversations, the spaces between words. Those were the places where meaning lived. Those were the places where meaning lived. Those were the spaces where connection grew. And in those spaces, I felt myself reflecting more deeply on what it means to allow someone into your heart. It means learning to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. It means recognizing when fear is speaking louder than love and choosing to lean toward love anyway. It means noticing when you're pulling away and asking yourself why. It means being honest about what you feel, even when vulnerability shakes your voice. And above all, it means understanding that love is not just something you give, it's something you grow, something you nurture, something you reflect upon again and again so it can deepen instead of fade. As I reflected more on the depth of what I felt, I began seeing myself more clearly. I saw how hard I had tried to appear strong, how tightly I had held on to the idea that independence meant never needing anyone. But caring for you taught me that needing someone doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It makes you open. It makes you real in a world that often pushes people to hide behind shields of indifference. You made me realize that strength isn't the absence of vulnerability. Strength is choosing to feel even when feeling scares you. Every memory with you became a point of reflection. The warmth of your smile, the warmth of your smile, the softness in your voice, the way you seem to carry your own quiet storms and your own unspoken hopes. I found myself wanting to understand your world, your feelings, your dreams, and in wanting that, I began understanding my own heart more deeply. I began seeing how much compassion lived inside me, how much tenderness I was capable of offering, how much depth I had tried to hide because I wasn't sure anyone would value it. But you did, without even knowing it, without effort, without intention, simply by being who you are. Your existence made reflection inevitable. Your presence made introspection feel natural instead of heavy. You made me want to sit with my emotions, not run from them. You made me want to learn the language of my own heart. There were moments when the intensity of it all overwhelmed me, when the thought of losing you felt like a shadow pressing against my chest, when the idea of not being enough made me tighten inward. And in those moments, I reflected even more deeply, asking myself why I feared losing something that felt so right. And the answer became clear. Because real connection is rare. Because when something touches you on a deeper level, it creates a tenderness you don't want to let go of. Because love, real love, doesn't just touch the surface, it shifts the core. And that shift is what I kept reflecting on again and again, the way my thoughts softened, the way my heart opened, the way my life felt different. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because someone like you walked into it. Someone whose presence felt like quiet understanding. Someone whose existence reminded me of the kind of person I wanted to be. Every reflection brought me closer to myself. Every emotion made me understand my own depth. Every moment of caring for you revealed another layer of who I am. And that is why this has been so powerful, so transformative, so deeply felt. Because loving you didn't just change how I saw you, it changed how I saw myself.